because there's silence for a change. But you're very, very welcome to this extraordinary Zoomsday event. This is a Bloomsday like no other. We're just not able to meet as we usually do in Fitzgerald's pub around this time. But as you heard among the chat, a few of us went down to the tower this morning in case a few diehards should show up. And sure enough, two fellas had started reading it at 3 minutes to 8. So nobody was going to get ahead of them. But a few people arrived in costume, few people in their cycling shorts, and Seamus took some photographs, and no doubt they'll be seen up on the website. So I hope you all enjoyed your breakfast of the inner organs of beasts and fowls. You're all looking splendid. Lots of cross-dressing going on, lots of gender fluidity happening this morning. It's really great. And a very, very special welcome to people who are tuning in from abroad. We've got Racker in London. We've got Frankie in Madrid. We've got Denise and Hattie. Is that Hattie with you? I think it is. Yeah, fantastic. In Rye. And then all the way in Valencia, we've got the Bloomers. So we're very, very happy to see you guys because you are regulars in the tower and we really miss you. But we're going to hear from you in a few minutes, reading from Telemachus, and myself and Simo are going to do a little duet. Dolores is stuck in Portugal. We're very sorry, Dolores, that you can't get home from... You're missing beautiful drizzle here, you know. Now, I'll introduce everybody one by one, and I'll attempt to unmute you. If I can't unmute you, you should be able to unmute yourself. And please remember to put yourself back on mute after you've finished singing or reciting. And you can also chat to each other and among yourselves. If you go down to the chat button, you can open up a little dialogue box there and you can chat away. There's Lucy saying hello to everybody from Hastings. Lucy, Sue and Maria in Hastings. We're absolutely delighted that you can join us. That's brilliant. Okay, so listen, without any further ado, we're going to lash ahead. And as is traditional in our reading group, we're going to start with Roland and Annette. They're going to start reading from Telemachus, and then we're going to kind of speed our way through all the episodes until we get to Penelope, and then we'll be ready for our gorgonzola sandwiches and glass of Burgundy. So, Roland, I'm going to unmute you now, and if you want to take it away, yourself and Annette, and enjoy the morning, everybody. Okay, Roland, take it away.
Okay, thank you, Andrew. You asked me to pick a piece. I've picked a piece of The Milk Woman on page 32 of this edition, if anyone wants to follow. So here we go. A doorway was darkened by an entering form. "The milk, sir." "Come in, ma'am," Mulligan said. "Kinch, get the jug." An old woman came forward and stood by Stephen's elbow. "That's a lovely morning, sir," she said. "Glory be to God." "To whom?" Mulligan said, glancing at her. "Ah, to be sure." Stephen reached back and took the milky jug from the locker. "The islanders," Mulligan said to Haynes casually, speaking frequently of the collector of prepuces. "How much, sir?" asked the old woman. "A quart," Stephen said. He watched her pour into the measure and thence into the jug. Rich, white milk, not hers. Ouch, shrunken paps. He poured again a measureful and a tinny. Old and secret she had entered from her morning world. Maybe a messenger. She praised that goodness of the milk pouring it out. Crouched by a patient crowd, cowered brae-break in the lush field. A witch on her toadstool. Her wrinkled fingers quick in the squirting duds. They lowed about her whom they knew. Ewes, silky cattle. Silk of the kine, and poor old woman, names given her in old time. A wandering crown, lowly form of an immortal, serving her conqueror and her gay betrayer, their common queen, a messenger from the secret morning, to serve or to upbraid, whether he could not tell, but scorned to beg her favour. It is indeed, ma'am, Mulligan said, pouring milk into the taste it, sir, she said. He drank at her bidding. If we could only live in good food like that, he said to us somewhat loudly, we wouldn't have the country full of rotten teeth and rotten guts, living in a bog swamp eating cheap food, and the streets paved with dust, horse dung, and the consumptive bits. Are you a medical student, sir? The old woman asked. I am, ma'am, what Mulligan answered.
Stephen listened in scornful silence. She bows her old head to a voice that speaks to her loudly. Her bone setter, her medicine man. Me, she slights. The voice that still shrive and oil for the grave, all there is of her, but a woman's unclean loins, of man's flesh made not in God's likeness, the serpent's prey. And to the loud voice that now bids her be silent, with wondering, unsteady eyes. Do you understand what he says? Stephen asked her. Is it French you talking, sir? The old woman said to Haynes. Haynes spoke to her again in a longer speech confidently. Irish, Buck Mulligan said. Is there Gaelic on you? I thought it was Irish, she said, by the sound of it. Are you from the West, sir? I am, an Englishman, Haynes answered. He's English, Buck Mulligan said, and he thinks we ought to speak Irish in Ireland. Sure we ought to, the old woman said, and I'm ashamed I don't speak the language myself. I'm told it's a grand language by them that knows. Grand is no name for it, said Buck Mulligan. Wonderful entirely. Fill us out some more tea, Kinch. Would you like a cup, ma'am? No, thank you, sir, the old woman said, slipping the ring of the milk can on her forearm and about to go. Haynes said to her, have you your bill? We'd better pay her, Mulligan, hadn't we? Stephen filled again with 3 cups. Bill, sir, she said, halting. Well, it's 7 mornings a pint at 2p is 7 twos is a shilling, and 2p over, and these 3 mornings a quarter 4p is 3 quarts is a shilling, and 1 and 2 is 2 and 2, sir. Buck Mulligan sighed, and having filled his mouth with a crust thickly buttered on both sides, stretched forth his legs and began to search his trouser pockets. Pay up and look pleasant, Haynes said to him, smiling.
Thanks very much, Annette. Thank you, Roland. And now we'd like to go all the way over to Valencia, and we'd like to invite the Bloomers to read from the first episode, and then we'll sing a song. Okay, take it away, boys.
Okay, Santi.
Haga y alegra esa cara, le dijo Haynes sonriendo. Stephen llenó por tercera vez una cucharada de té coloreando tenuemente la espesa leche cremosa. Buck Mulligan sacó un florín, le dio vueltas entre los dedos y exclamó, ¡milagro! Lo pasó por encima de la mesa hacia la vieja, diciendo, no pidas más de mí, colibrí, todo lo que tengo te di. Stephen puso la moneda en la mano indiferente de ella. Le quedamos a deber 2 peniques, dijo. Hay tiempo de sobra, señor, dijo cogiendo la moneda. Hay tiempo de sobra. Buenos días, señor, sin duda alguna.
Saludó con una reverencia y salió, seguida por la salmodia cariñosa de Buck Mulligan. Vida de mi vida, si más hubiera, más a tus pies uno pusiera. Se volvió a Stephen y dijo, ¿en serio, Dédalus? Estoy tieso. Aligera y vete a tu escuela de putas y trae algún dinero. Hoy los bardos han de beber y solazarse. Irlanda espera que todo hombre en este día cumpla con su deber.
That reminds me, Haynes said, rising. that I have to visit your National Library today. Our swim first, Buck Mulligan said. He turned to Stephen and asked blandly, is this the day for your monthly wash, Kinch? Then he said to Haynes, the unclean bard makes a point of washing once a month. All Ireland is washed by the Gulf Stream, Stephen said, as he let honey trickle over a slice of the loaf. Haynes from the corner where he was knotting easily a scarf about the loose collar of his tennis shirt spoke. I intend to make a collection of your sayings, if you will let me. Speaking to me, they wash and tub and scrub, Angabite of Inwick, conscious yet. Here's a spot.
Thanks, Paul and Simo and Carlos and Santiago. It's great to see you again. Okay, Simo, will we sing our song?
You ready? Yes, I am ready.
So will I start?
When you want.
Okay. On the 16th of June 1904, the Tower is the place to be, with stately plump Buck Mulligan and a scrotum tightening sea. At the school on Dalkey Avenue, Stephen is a fake, and history is a nightmare from which he's trying to wake.
Por la playa de San Dimón, cierra los ojos para ver, y triste hacia la eternidad dirige todo su ser. En el 7 de Coles Street está Bloom desayunando, órganos internos de reses y aves, y Molly descansando.
Away he goes buying lemony soap in Sweeney's at Lincoln Place, where his throwaway word gives Bantam Lions a tip for the day's big race. Then off with Martin Cunningham, Mr. Power and Stephen's da, behind poor Paddy Dignam in the Solomon funeral car.
A mediodía en el Freeman casi se encontrarán, donde una carta Stephen y un anuncio Bloom allí entregarán. En David Bank, taberna decente, Leopold comerá un sándwich de gorgonzola y un vaso de Borgoña beberá.
At the door of the National Library, Stephen stands aside. To let a man pass out, it's still too soon for them to collide. And Dublin is amazed at seen from different points of view, as the Viceroy, William Humble, Earl of Dudley, passes through.
En el Ormond, Bloom decide a Boylan abordar, pero no más fácil sería poner puertas al mar. En la taberna de Kiernan, furioso ciudadano, increpa Mr. Bloom, escapa del refeniano.
At the beach he delights in Gertie's exposition on the sly, and both of them explode like Roman candles in the sky. With parodies in Holles Street, another hour is past. O Templar enter scripturae, they meet each other at last.
En el burdel, teatro de los sueños, Stephen enloquecido, y Bloom alucinado ve a su hijo desaparecido. En el albergo del cochero tomarán una colación, con café y un bollo celebrarán su comunión.
So what do they do back at Leopold's Gaff when all that's to say has been said? They gaze at stars and Stephen leaves and Bloom heads up to bed, where Molly's soliloquying about every fond caress, till finally she says the word, oh yes, she says it, yes.
Yes.
Yes. Well done, guys. Thank you very much. Absolutely brilliant to see you. Okay, on to episode 2, and we're going to have Kevin Doherty as Mr. DC, and after that we're going to have a song from Robert Walsh. Okay, so Kevin, take it away.
Okay, I'm unmuted. Hello everybody, this is my Mr. DC hat. So a brief introduction first of all. In episode 2, Nestor, it's about 10 in the morning and we're in the school in Dalkey where Stephen is teaching at this time. The class has ended and the pupils have gone out to play hockey. Stephen goes into the principal's office to get paid. Mr. DC is the principal and proprietor of the school. He's an older man, staunchly pro-unionist, Anglophile Protestant. He's strongly anti-Semitic, misogynistic and anti-nationalist, and a real know-all as well. Mr. DC represents Nestor in Homer's Odyssey, who is an aged Greek soldier. He's known for his ponderous verbiage, who spends much time trying to keep order among his soldiers, and the parallel in the narrative is, of course, his ability to keep control of the pupils during the 10-year siege of Troy in the Odyssey. Mr. DC wants Stephen to bring a letter he's writing to the newspaper editor with whom Stephen is acquainted. The letter is on the subject of the prevention of foot and mouth disease in cattle. Mr. DC believes he knows how this can be done. Then Stephen says his famous line, "History is a nightmare from which I am trying to awake." So here we go in my selected piece of the text. Mr. DC looked down and held for a while the wings of his nose, tweaked between his fingers. Looking up again, he set them free. "I am happier than you are," he said. "We have committed many errors and many sins. A woman brought sin into the world. For a woman who was no better than she should be, Helen, the runaway wife of Menelaus. 10 years the Greeks made war on Troy. A faithless wife first brought the strangers to our shore here, MacMurrough's wife and her leman O'Rourke, Prince of Breffni. A woman too brought Parnello, many errors, many failures, but not the one sin. I am a struggler now at the end of my days, but I will fight for the right till the end. For Ulster will fight and Ulster will be right." Stephen raised the sheets in his hand. "Well, sir," he began. "I foresee," Mr. DC said, "that you will not remain here very long at this work. You were not born to be a teacher, I think. Perhaps I am wrong." "A learner, rather," Stephen said. "And here, what will you learn more?" Mr. DC shook his head. "Who knows? To learn one must be humble, but life is a great teacher." Stephen rustled the sheets again. "As regards these," he began. "Yes," Mr. DC said. "You have 2 copies there, if you can have them published at once." Telegraph, Irish Homestead. "I will try," Stephen said, "and let you know tomorrow. I know 2 editors slightly." "That will do," Mr. DC said briskly. "I wrote last night to Mr. Field MP. There's a meeting of the Cattle Traders Association today at the City Arms Hotel. I asked him to lay my letter before the meeting. You see if you can get it into your 2 papers. What are they?" The Evening Telegraph. "That will do," Mr. DC said. "There is no time to lose. Now I have to answer that letter for my cousin." "Good morning, sir," Stephen said, putting the sheets in his pocket. "Thank you." "Not at all," Mr. DC said as he searched the papers on his desk. "I like to break a lance with you, old as I am." "Good morning, sir," Stephen said, again bowing to his bent back. He went out by the open porch and down to the gravel path under the trees, hearing the cries of voices and crack of sticks from the playfield. The lines couchant on the pillars as he passed out through the gate. "Toothless terrors, still I will help him in his fight. Mulligan will dub me a new name, the bullock befriending bard. Master Dedalus, running after me, no more letters, I hope. Just one moment." "Yes, sir," Stephen said, turning back at the gate. Mr. DC halted, breathing hard and swallowing his breath. "I just wanted to say," he said, "Ireland, they say, has the honour of being the only country which never persecuted the Jews. Do you know that? No, and do you know why?" He frowned sternly on the bright air. "Why, sir?" Stephen asked, beginning to smile. "Because she never let them in," Mr. DC said solemnly. A cough ball of laughter leaped from his throat, dragging after it a rattling chain of phlegm. He turned back quickly, coughing, laughing. He lifted arms, waving to the air. "She never let them in," he cried again through his laughter as he stamped on gaitered feet over the gravel of the path. "That's why." On his wise shoulders, through the checkerwork of leaves, the sun flung spangles, dancing coins.
Well done, Kevin. Fantastic. Excellent hat work. Brilliant. Brilliantly done.
A last-minute innovation.
Well done. Now we're going to have a song from Robert Walsh, and I saw Robert there somewhere, and if I can find you, I'll unmute you, but if you can unmute yourself, that would be, there we are.
You got me?
You gotcha. How are you, Robert?
Testing 1, 2, 3. Can you sure?
Yes, we can. It's great to see you. Great to hear you.
Ma, will you put on the kettle?
Anyway, your bookshelves are rivaling Heinz's now. Heinz better watch out.
Oh, is Heinz on? He is, yeah, no?
He is, yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
very good. Good old Heinz. Actually, I'm just looking at it. There's a lot of people on this screen that I've a lot of affection for, and it's sort of great to see everyone. Okay,
Well,
so saying, sorry, go on.
I was going to say it's great to see you too.
Huh? Oh, it's great. You two are great, all right. You can get tickets all right online, and okay, I'll sing. As you know, the Brown and the Yellow Ale. Now, this is a song seemingly was a favourite of Joyce, and Padraig Colum in his book, Our Friend James Joyce, refers to Joyce singing this particular song. And it seems, as I say, he sang it on many, many occasions. Now, the song tells the story of an older man with a young wife, and he may be impotent because he drinks so much yellow and brown ale. So maybe this is the sort of the inference here. Anyway, he tells his wife that it's okay for her to go ahead and to be off with the young man. So, as I say, but he still loves her, and it really it upsets him to acquiesce to this. So, and there is a sort of connection, a tenuous connection with Bloom in a sense, because Bloom does the same thing, doesn't he, with Molly? And he sort of goes around through the day, and he thinks of Molly through the day, but he still accepts Blazes Boylan and the assignation of Blazes Boylan and Molly at 4 o'clock. He accepts it. Anyway, so this is the Brown and the Yellow Ale. As I was going down the road one fine morning, oh, the brown and the yellow ale, I met with the young man without any warning. Oh, love of my heart. He asked me if that woman by my side was my daughter. Oh, the brown and the yellow ale. When I said she was my wife, his manner didn't alter. Oh, love of my heart. He asked me if I'd lend her for an hour and a quarter. Oh, the brown and the yellow ale. I said, if she thinks it's fine, you may take her away. Oh, love of my heart. She said, you take the high road and I'll be off with him. Oh, the brown and the yellow ale, and we'll meet again by the fork in the river. Oh, love of my heart. I waited by the river for an hour and a quarter. Oh, the brown and the yellow ale, when she came up to me, 'twas without shame I saw her. Oh, love of my heart. When she told me her story, sure, I lay down and died. Oh, the brown and the yellow ale, she sent 2 men out for timber, and she never even cried. Oh, love of my heart. Aboard of Alderan, aboard of Holly, Oh, the brown and the yellow whale, and 2 yards of a shroud for to put all around me. Oh, love of my heart. If my own little woman, if my own little mother, she had never been a woman. Oh, the brown and the yellow whale, there are many's another song I could sing about the women. Oh, love of my heart. There you go.
Good man, Robert. Thank you very much. We'll be back to you later on for another one. That was terrific.
No
now
problem.
we're moving on to Sandymount Strand, and we're going to ask James Houlihan as Stephen Dedalus, and after James, we're going to have a few pieces from Racker all the way from London. So, but first of all, James, take it away.
Good morning, everybody, and happy Bloomsday. Thanks, Andrew, for giving me the hardest chapter in the book. That's lovely. Welcome to episode 3, Proteus, named after a shape-shifting god of the sea. Stephen has come from the school in Dalkey to stroll along Sandymount Strand and to fill up some time before his appointment with Mulligan in the ship bar. It's sometime around 11 a.m. on June the 16th, 1904. This actually, as I mentioned, is probably the toughest chapter of Ulysses, and many readers or new readers to Ulysses are turned off at this point and abandon the book altogether, sadly. But it is quite an interesting chapter, and it's largely composed of the thoughts of Stephen as he strolls across the beach. So much of it is an inner monologue of Stephen's, where he's contemplating. It's actually Joyce showing off. He's referencing Aristotle, Dante, Berkeley, and others, and he's trying to, through Stephen, he's trying to contemplate the meaning of and the perception that we have of life. So anyway, with that little complicated introduction, let me go through the beginning of Proteus. Ineluctable modality of the visible, at least that, if no more, thought through my eyes. Signatures of all things I am here to read, sea spawn and sea wrack, the nearing tide, that rusty boot. Snot green, blue silver, rust, colored signs, limits of the diaphane. But he adds, in bodies. Then he was aware of them bodies before, of them colored. How? By knocking his sconce against them, sure. Go easy. Bald he was, and a millionaire, maestro di color Gesano, limit of the diaphane, in. Why in? Diaphane, a diaphane. If you can put your 5 fingers through it, it is a gate. If not, a door. Shut your eyes and see. Stephen closed his eyes to hear his boots crush, crackling wrack and shells. You are walking through it, howsomever. I am, a stride at a time, a very short space of time, through very short times of space. 5, 6, the Nakanander. Exactly, and that is the ineluctable modality of the audible. Open your eyes. No, Jesus, if I fell over a cliff that beetles o'er his base, fell through the Nebenaninder, ineluctably. I am getting on nicely in the dark. My ash sword hangs at my side. Tap with it. They do. My 2 feet in his boots are at the end of his legs, Neben einander. Sound solid, made by the mallet of Los Demiurgos. Am I walking into eternity along Sandymount Strand? Crush, crack, crick, crick, wild sea money. Dominic Deasy, Kenzamal. Won't you come down to Sandymount, Madeline the mare? Rhythm begins, you see. I hear a catalectic tetrameter of iams marching. No, a gallop. D-line the mare. Open your eyes now. I will. One moment. Has all vanished since? If I open and am forever in the black diaphane? Basta. I will see if I can see. See now. There, all that time without you, and ever shall be, world without end. That's
Good man, James. Thank you very much. And now we make our way across the Irish Sea and we call on Racker to, let me see, can you unmute yourself there, Racker?
Go to there, unmute.
Good man. Hold on a second. Just try again there, Racker, to unmute yourself. Now we got you. Yay, that's it. Terrific. Great to see you.
Go on. Continue, Andrew, in your flow, in your space. Are you finished? Are you leaving a little gap for me to perform? Right.
He stopped.
It's called The Execution. No introduction, but there'll be an introduction at the end. The Execution. The children of the male and female foundling hospital who thronged the windows overlooking the scene were delighted with this unexpected addition to the day's entertainment, and a word of praise is due to the Little Sisters of the Poor for their excellent idea of affording the poor fatherless and motherless children a genuinely instructive treat. The picturesque foreign delegation, known as the Friends of the Emerald Isle, consisted of Bacci Benino Benone, Monsieur Pierre-Paul Petit Epaton.
Okay, Racker, we've actually lost sound there. We can't hear you at the moment, even though you're unmuted.
Well, can you hear me now?
No.
No. I'll try again.
I think the thing to do is just to check your microphone setting.
I can hear him okay, Andrew.
Just unmute yourself again.
We can all hear him.
Yeah.
I can hear.
You're the one excluded.
And we might have to come back to you later.
Yeah, I can hear as
Just
well.
you, Andrew. Everybody else can hear him.
Unmute yourself, Racker.
Okay, we'll move on. We'll come back to you later, Racker. Hopefully that'll be sorted out. And we'll move on to the Calypso episode. And after the Calypso episode, Wendy from the Druidy Druids is going to give us a song. So in the Calypso episode, we meet Mr. Bloom. And starring as Mr. Bloom this morning, we have Sheila Kelly. Sheila, can you unmute yourself?
Okay, I'm unmuted. Good morning, everybody, and happy Bloomsday.
You look great.
Chapter 4, and it's 8 a.m. in the morning.
Sheila.
It's Calypso, I should say.
There's no sound coming from you, Sheila, either.
I can hear her.
No.
Andrew,
I can hear her.
You are unmuted.
Andrew, I can hear her fine.
All here.
I
can hear.
So Connor is trying to say something there to me.
phone, Andrew.
Yeah, I can hear you.
I can hear.
I can hear.
Everybody can hear except you, Andrew. You're the dodgy one.
Can't hear
Everybody can hear
Sheila.
Andrew.
Let's
Carry on,
see
Sheila.
if we can hear
Will
Wendy.
I carry on? Okay, I'll
and
start
then
again.
We'll have to come back to people.
Nope.
Is Wendy there to give us a song? Okay,
Shall I
Wendy,
start,
can you
folks?
unmute yourself?
Yeah.
Now,
Okay.
Wendy, can we hear you?
It's Calypso chapter 4. It's 8 a.m. in the morning, and
Yes,
Mr.
Kathy.
Bloom is preparing breakfast for his wife Molly.
Okay, great.
Mr.
Okay, that's
Leopold
brilliant.
Bloom,
Okay,
Bloom ate with relish the inner organs of beasts and fowl.
okay, thank you.
He
So the
likes
good news is
pictures.
everybody can hear everybody else except for me. That's fantastic. Okay, very good. So what we'll do is we'll go back to Racker, and Racker is going to start again. Racker, I beg your pardon. The fault is at my end. So thanks, Kathy, for letting me know. So we'll try and sort it out at this end. So in the meantime, Racker, would you unmute yourself and start again, please?
Right. So can
Okay,
you,
Racker, fire ahead, please.
can people hear me now?
Yes.
Yes, I can hear you.
My sympathies go out to you. Anyway, the execution. The children of the male and female foundling hospital who thronged the windows overlooking the scene were delighted with this unexpected addition to the day's entertainment. And a word of praise is due to the Little Sisters of the Poor for their excellent idea of affording the poor fatherless and motherless children a genuinely instructive treat. The picturesque foreign delegation, known as the Friends of the Emerald Isle, consisted of Commendatore Baci Baci Benino Benone, Monsieur Pierre-Paul Petit Epaton, the Grand Choker Vladimir Meyer Pocket Handkerchief, the Archchoker Leopold Rudolf von Schwanzenbad Hodenthaler, Hiram White Bamboost, Count Athenatos Karamelopoulos, Alibaba Bakshish Rahat Locum Effendi y de España, Señor Hidalgo Caballero, Don Pecadillo y Palabras de la Malora de la Malaria. Quietly, unassumingly, Rumbold stepped onto the scaffold in faultless mourning dress. He announced his presence by that gentle Rumboldian cough, which so many have tried unsuccessfully to imitate. Hard by the block stood the grim figure of the executioner. As he awaited the final signal, he tasted the edge of his horrible weapon by honing it upon his brawny forearm and decapitating in rapid succession a flock of sheep. The neck and non plus ultra of emotion were reached when the blushing bride-elect flung herself upon the muscular bosom of him who was about to be launched into eternity for her sake. Rumbold folded her willowy form in a loving embrace, murmuring fondly, "Sheila, my own." Encouraged by this use of her Christian name, she kissed passionately all the various suitable areas of his person to which the decencies of prison garb permitted her ardor to reach. Swore to him that she would never forget her hero boy who went to his death with a song on his lips as if he were but going to a hurling match in Clonturk Park. But anon the two were overcome with grief. A fresh torrent of tears burst from their lacrimal ducts, and the vast concourse of people, touched to the inmost core, broke to heart-rending sobs. Big, strong men, officers of the peace and genial giants of the Royal Irish Constabulary, were making frank use of their handkerchiefs, and it is safe to say that there was not a dry eye in that record assemblage. A most romantic incident occurred when a handsome young Oxford graduate stepped forward and, presenting his visiting card, bank book and genealogical tree, solicited the hand of the hapless young lady and was accepted on the spot. Even the stern Provost Marshal, Lieutenant Colonel Tomkin Maxwell French Mullen Tomlinson, who presided on the sad occasion, could not now restrain his natural emotion. With his mailed gauntlet, He brushed away a furtive tear and was overheard by those burghers in his immediate entourage to murmur to himself, "Go blimey, if she ain't a clinker, that there bleeding tart. Blimey, it makes me kind of bleeding cry. Straight it does when I sees her, 'cause I think of my old mash tub, what's waiting for me down Limehouse Way."
Well done, Riker.
Thanks very much, Racker. All right, I'm back. I'm on a different device. I'm taking inspiration from Olive here. I'm multi-devicing here. So we're going on with Calypso, Mr. Bloom, Sheila Kelly.
Morning, everybody.
All right,
Happy Bloomsday. I'm here, Andrew. Yes, I can hear you. Happy Bloomsday, everybody. This is chapter 4, Calypso. It's 8 a.m. in the morning, and Mr. Bloom is there at home in Eccles Street, and he's preparing breakfast for his wife, Molly. This is the start of the chapter. Mr. Leopold Bloom ate with relish the inner organs of beasts and fowls. He liked thick giblet soup, nutty gizzards, a stuffed roast heart, liver slices fried with crust crumbs, and Fred Hencod's roes. Most of all, he liked grilled mutton kidneys, which gave to his palate a fine tang of faintly scented urine. Kidneys were in his mind as he moved about the kitchen softly, writing her breakfast things on the humpy tray. Gellet light and air were in the kitchen, but out of doors, gentle summer morning everywhere. It made him feel a bit peckish. The coals were reddening, and another slice of bread and butter, 3, 4, right. She didn't like her plateful. Right. He turned from the tray, lifted the kettle off the hob and set it sideways on the fire. It sat there, dull and squat, its spout stuck out. Cup of tea soon, good, mouth dry. The cat walked stiffly around a leg of the table with the tail on high. Meow. "Oh, there you are," Mr. Bloom said, turning from the fire. The cat meowed in answer and stalked again stiffly around a leg of the table, meowing. Just how she stalks over my writing table. Purr. Scratch my head. Purr. Mr. Bloom watched curiously, kindly, the lithe black form. Clean to see, the gloss of her sleek hide, the white button under the butt of her tail, and the green flashing eyes. He bent down to her, his hands on his knees. "Milk for the pussons," he said. "Meow," the cat cried. They called them stupid. They understand what we say better than we understand them. She understands all she wants to. Vindictive too, cruel, her nature. Curious mice never squeal, seem to like it. Wonder what I look like to her. Height of a tower? No, she can jump me. Afraid of the chickens she is, he said mockingly. Afraid of the chuck-chucks. I never saw such a stupid pussons as the pussons. Meow, the cat said loudly. She blinked up out of her avid, shame-closing eyes, mewing plaintively and long, showing him her milk-white teeth. He watched the dark eye slits narrowing with greed till her eyes were green stones. Then he went to the dresser, took the jug Hanlon's milkman had just filled for him, and poured warm-bubbled milk in a saucer and set it slowly on the floor. Grrr, she cried, running to lap. He watched the bristles shining wirily in the weak light as she tipped 3 times and licked lightly. Wonder is it true if you clip them, they can't mouse after? Why? They shine in the dark, perhaps, the tips, or kind of feelers in the dark, perhaps. He listened to her licking, lap. Ham and eggs? No. No good eggs with this drought. Want pure fresh water. Thursday. Not a good day either for a mutton kidneys at Buckley's. Fried with butter, a shake of pepper. Better a pork kidney at Dugasse's. While the kettle is boiling, she's lapped slower, then licking the saucer clean. Why are their tongues so rough? To lap better, all porous holes. Nothing she can eat. He glanced around him, no. On creaky boots, he went up the staircase to the hall and paused by the bedroom door. She might like something tasty. Thin bread and butter, she likes in the morning. Still perhaps once in a way. He said softly in the bare hall, "I'm going around the corner. Be back in a minute." And when he had heard his voice say it, he added, "You don't want anything for breakfast?" A sleepy, soft grunt answered, No, she didn't want anything. He heard then a warm, heavy sigh, softer as she turned over, and the loose bracts of the bedstead jingled. Must get those settled, really. Pity, all the way from Gibraltar. That's it.
Well done.
That's great. Thanks, Sheila. Are we going to... Okay, folks. Thanks. Wow. I don't know if you can hear me now.
Yes.
Give me a thumbs up. Yes, okay. So when you need to give us a song, we always are delighted to have the Druids at the Tower, and we're delighted to have you with us. Wendy, what have you got for us this morning?
Oh, yes. I'm with Thomas Dunn, and we're going to do Seaside Girls. And can you tell me, is the sound okay? Because we can turn it up at our end. Does the sound okay?
Very good.
Yep.
Hello.
He slit open the letter, glancing down the page and over. Thanks. You, Tam, Mr. Coughlin. Of Orwell, Picnic, Young Student, Blazes, Boylan, Seaside Girls.
Probably use my phone. I don't know how long it'll last, but whatever.
Down that Margrave, looking very charming. You are sure to meet.
No.
Girls, Seaside Girls. Sticks they steer and promenade appear to give the boys a treat. In piqué silks and lace, they tip you quite a playful wink. It always is the case. You seldom stop to think. You fall in love, of course, on the spot, but not with one girl, always with the lot.
Those girls, those lovely seaside girls, all dimples, smiles and curls, your hair it simply whirls. They look alright, complexions pink and white, with diamond rings and dainty feet, golden hair from Regent Street, lace and grace and lots of face, those pretty little seaside girls.
There's more than Clara, Glendale and Sorrow. Where do they come from? Those girls, dear girls, those lovely seaside girls. From bloom or smart, they captivate the heart when cycling down the front. At wheels and heels and nose, you're not still look, suppose. But every Johnny knows, because you're still good. And the boys observe the latest in socks, as they learn to play and read the clocks.
Those lovely seaside girls, all dimples, smiles and curls, your head it simply whirls. They look alright, complexions pink and white, with diamond rings and dainty feet, golden hair from Regent Street, lace and braids and lots of face, those pretty little seaside girls.
When you go to do little boating, just for fun you take those girls, dear girls, those lovely seaside girls. They all say,
we so dearly love the sea.
Make their way on board, the wind begins to blow, and each girl remarks,
How rough today, it's lovely, don't you know?
And then they sneak away, and the yacht begins to roll in the tide, and you see hanging over the vessel's side those girls, those lovely seaside girls, all dimples, smiles and curls, your head it simply whirls, they look a sight, complexions green and white, hats fly off and at your feet, for golden hair from Regent Street, rouge and goose down the coast of pretty little seaside girls.
Those lovely seaside girls, all dimples, smiles and curls, your head it simply whirls, they look complexions pink and white, with diamond rings and dainty feet, golden hair from Regent Street, lace and grace and lots of face, a pretty little seaside girl.
Yes, he never did a thing as good before.
Now, that's 1 billion, the Druidy Druids. Now we're moving on to the Luscious Eaters. And after Zan, as C. McCoy, we'll have Susie to give us a song. So Zan, can you unmute yourself? Now, Zan.
Hi. Mr. Bloom is taking a rather circuitous route from his house in Eccles Street to the post office in Westland Row, where he's hoping to pick up a letter from Martha, with whom he is having a rather flirtatious correspondence. And he is, the reason that is called Lotus Eaters is that Odysseus's men, at this point in their journey home, they eat the flower of the lotus leaf and become very drowsy. The theme of the whole episode is laziness, drowsiness, complacency. He's strolling down, he's taking this roundabout route, and he is looking in shop windows, thinking about the calming effect of tea and what it's like in the Far East where the tea comes from, and everything is complacent and lazy and slow. He actually meets McCoy, and he's trying to find a quiet spot where he can read his letter. So this is it. Mr. Bloom stood at the corner, his eyes wandering over the multicolored hoardings. Cantrell and Cochrane's ginger ale, aromatic. Cleary's summer sale. No, he's going on straight. Hello, Leah tonight. Mrs. Bandman Palmer. Like to see her in that again. Hamlet she played last night. Male impersonator. Perhaps he was a woman. Why Ophelia committed suicide? Poor Papa. How he used to talk about Kate Bateman in that. Outside the Adelphi in London. Waited all the afternoon to get in. Year before I was born, that was, 65. And Ristori in Vienna. What is this the right name is? By Mosenthal it is. Rachel, is it? No. The scene he was always talking about where the old blind Abraham recognizes the voice and puts his fingers on his face. Nathan's voice, his son's voice. I hear the voice of Nathan, who left his father to die of grief and misery in my arms, who left the house of his father and left the God of his father. Every word is so deep, Leopold. Poor Papa, poor man. I'm glad I didn't go into the room to look at his face. That day, oh dear, oh dear. Whew. Well, perhaps it was the best for him. Mr. Bloom went round the corner and past the drooping nags of the Hazard. No use thinking of it anymore. Nosebag time. Wish I hadn't met that McCoy fellow. He came nearer and heard a crunching of gilded oats, the gently champing teeth. Their full buck eyes regarded him as he went by, amid the sweet oaten reek of horse piss. Their Eldorado. Poor Jugginses. Damn all they know or care about anything, with their long noses stuck in nose bags. Too full for words. Still, they get their feet all right and their doss. Gelded too. A stump of black gutta percha wagging limp between their haunches. Might be happy all the same that way. Good, poor brutes they look. Still, their neigh can be very irritating. He drew the letter from his pocket and folded it into the newspaper he carried. Might just walk into her here. The lane is safer. He passed the cabman's shelter. Curious the life of drifting cabbies, all weathers, all places, time or set down, no will of their own. Voglio e non. Like to give them an odd cigarette. Sociable. Shout a few flying syllables as they pass. He hummed. La 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 la. He turned into Cumberland Street and, going on some paces, halted in the lee of the station wall. No one. Mead's timber yard, piled box, ruins and tenements. With careful tread, he passed over a hopscotch court with its forgotten picky stone. Not a sinner. Near the timber yard, a squatted child at marbles, alone, shooting the taw with a cunniton. A wise tabby, a blinking sphinx, watched from her warm sill. Pity to disturb them. Mohammed cut a piece out of his mantle not to wake her. Open it. And once I played marbles. When I went to that old dame's school, she liked mignonette, Mrs. Ellis's, and Mr. He opened the letter within the newspaper. A flower. I think it's a yellow flower with flattened petals. Not annoyed then. What does she say? Dear Henry, I got your last letter to me, and thank you very much for it. I'm sorry you did not like my last letter. Why did you enclose the stamps? I'm awfully angry with you. I do wish I could punish you for that. I called you naughty boy because I do not like that other word. Please tell me, what is the real meaning of that word? Are you not happy in your home, you poor little naughty boy? I do wish I could do something for you. Please tell me what you think of poor me. I often think of the beautiful name you have. Dear Henry, when will we meet? I think of you so often you have no idea. I have never felt myself so drawn to a man as you. I feel so bad about it. Please write me a long letter and tell me more. Remember, if you do not, I will punish you. So now you know what I will do to you, you naughty boy, if you do not write. Oh, how I long to meet you. Henry, dear, do not deny my request before my patients are exhausted. Then I will tell you all. Goodbye now, naughty darling. I have such a bad headache today, and write by return to your loving Martha. P.S. Do tell me what kind of perfume does your wife use? I want to know. I want to know. I want to know.
Thank you, Martha.
That was something.
Thank you,
Hello?
Zan. Now, Susie,
Yeah, I'm here.
you have a
Can you hear
song
me?
for Great. Yes, absolutely. Fire ahead there.
Very good. Thank you very much. Hello, everyone. Happy Bloomsday. Down by the Sally Garden, my love and I did meet. She passed the Sally Gardens with little snow white feet. She bid me take love easy as the leaves grow upon the tree. But I was young and foolish, and with her would not agree. In a field by the river, my love and I did stand, and on my leaning shoulder she laid her snow white hand. She bid me take life easy as the grass grows on the weir. But I was young and foolish, and now am full of tears. Down by the Sally garden, my love and I did meet. She passed the Sally gardens with little snow white feet. She bid me take life easy as the leaves grow on the tree. But I, being young and foolish, with her did not agree.
That's lovely, Susie. Thank you very much. And it's lovely to remember Mr. Yates this morning, because he always kind of gets forgotten about because his day is on the 14th of June. Thanks, Susie.
Pleasure.
Okay, so we're heading for the next episode, which is Hades, and that's where we meet Mr. Simon Dedalus. Is Mr. Simon Dedalus in the room?
Just clearing my throat here now before we start. Yeah, this is Simon Dedalus, and you've been a long time coming. So, Simon Dedalus, based on Joyce's father, described by Joyce in Portrait of the Artist. Just a line or two here: a medical student, an oarsman, a tenor, an amateur actor, a shouting politician, a small landlord, a small investor, etc., etc. The episode is episode 6. I pronounce it Hades. It's 11 o'clock in the morning. We're on our way to the funeral of poor Paddy Dignam. We're just leaving Tritonville Road, and we're on our way to Glasnevin. There are 4 people in the funeral car: Simon Dedalus, Leopold Bloom, Martin Cunningham, and Jack Power. Here we go. The cab has just started to move. What way is he taking us? Mr. Power asked through both windows. Irish Town, Martin Cunningham said. Ringsend, Brunswick Street. Mr. Dedalus nodded, looking out. That's a fine old custom, he said. I am glad to see it has not died out. All watched a while through their windows, caps and hats lifted by passers. Respect. The carriage swerved from the tram track to the smoother road past Watery Lane. Mr. Bloom at gaze saw a lithe young man, clad in mourning, a wide hat. There's a friend of yours gone by, Dedalus, he said. Who is that? Your son and heir. Where is he? Mr. Dedalus said, stretching over across. The carriage, passing the open drains and mounds of ripped-up roadway before the tenement houses, lurched round the corner and, swerving back to the tram track, rolled on noisily with chattering wheels. Mr. Dedalus fell back, saying, Was that Mulligan Cad within his fetus a cat is? No, Mr. Bloom said. He was alone. Down with his Aunt Sally, I suppose, Mr. Dedalus said. The Goulding faction, the drunken little Costraw and Chrissy, Papa's little lump of dung, the wise child that knows her own father. Mr. Bloom smiled joylessly on Ringsend Road, Wallace Brothers, the Bottle Works, Dodderbridge. Richie Goulding and the legal bag. Goulding, Collis and Ward, he calls the firm. Jokes are getting a bit damp. Great card he was, waltzing in Stamer Street with Ignatius Gallagher on a Sunday morning. The landlady's 2 hats pinned on his head, out on the rampage all night. Beginning to tell on him now. That backache of his, I fear. Wife ironing his back. Thinks he'll cure it with pills. All breadcrumbs they are. About 600% profit. He's in with a low-down crowd, Mr. Dedalus snarled. That Mulligan is a contaminated, bloody, double-dyed ruffian by all accounts. His name stinks all over Dublin, but with the help of God and his blessed mother, I'll make it my business to write a letter one of those days to his mother or his aunt or whatever she is, that'll open her eye as wide as a gate. I'll tickle his catastrophe, believe you me, he cried above the clatter of the wheels. I won't have her bastard of a nephew ruin my son. A counter-jumper son selling tapes in my Cunderponic swing.
Done, Bish. Thanks a million. And well done, Moustache, for staying on. And, right, we're going to go straight to meet there Professor McHugh. If the professor can unmute himself, and before the professor starts reading, just want to, you may or may not have noticed, but most of the morning we've had 99 or 100 people tuned into us. So just to mention, very warm to people who are tuning in from all over the world. This Zoom day is being hosted by the Friends of the James Joyce Tower in Sandico, and the readers and singers are volunteers in the tower. So without further ado, we're going to head for the Aeolus episode. And Professor McHugh, how are you this morning?
Good morning, everybody. It's nice to see you all looking so well, and I hope attentive to the lesson that's about to be read. Aeolus, as you know, it's 12 o'clock noon, and Bloom arrives at the Freeman's Journal office. And this particular episode, you may notice, is separated into various headlines. That's headlines of newspapers, which headlines don't often be always as relevant as they should be to the passage that follows. And that's exactly the case in this instance. Just one explanation. This word tissue comes up, and a tissue of that time were very thin paper on which was printed the results or the upcoming meetings of race meetings, dogs and horses, and of which people paid quite a lot of money to get, because they were reckoned to give them a winner. Hence, the title of this one is Spot the Winner. Lenihan came out of the inner office with sports tissues. Who wants a dead cert for the Gold Cup, he asked. Scepter with O'Madden up. He tossed the tissues onto the table. Screams of newsboys barefoot in the hall rushed near, and the door was flung open. Hush, Lenihan said. I hear feet stoops. Professor McHugh strode across the room and seized the cringing urchin by the collar as the others scampered out of the hall and down the steps. The tissues rustled up in the draught, floated softly in the air, blue scrawls, and under the table came to earth. It wasn't me, sir. It was the big fellow. Shoved me, sir. Throw him out and shut the door, the editor said. There's a hurricane blowing. Lenihan began to paw the tissues up from the floor, grunting as he stooped twice. Waiting for the racing special, sir, the newsboy said. It was Pat Farrell shoved me, sir. He pointed to two faces peering in round the doorframe. Him, sir. Out of this with you, Professor McHugh said gruffly. He hustled the boy out and banged the door to. J.J. O'Malloy turned the files crackingly over, murmuring, seeking. Continued on page 6, column 4. Yes, Evening Telegraph here. Mr. Bloom phoned from the inner office. Is the boss? Yes. Telegraph. To where? Aha. Which auction rooms? Aha. I see. Right. I'll catch him. Now, if I can give a small explanation of this, because Professor McHugh is rarely annotated in any of the editions of Ulysses that I have seen. I think only one that I recall refers to him. And he's an interesting man in that he's referred to on this particular episode on 40 occasions. It's as if Joyce was saying to us, as Arthur Miller subsequently said, attention, attention must be paid. McHugh, the well-educated Belvedere and at Trinity, was not a professor. His full name was Hugh McNeill. He had three brothers, Professor Owen McNeill, James McNeill, and the second Governor General of the Irish Free State, and Charles McNeill, antiquarian. He was a married man with three children and lectured at Maynooth and UCD. But for some reason, possibly psychological, he found himself living in the outer office of the Freeman's Journal. Or failing that, he slept in a telephone box on College Green. He died in the dreaded Union Workhouse in 1935. Thanks to Vivian Igo's book for that last piece. So basically, that's it. Nothing more to say.
Okay, folks, I can't hear a thing, but I can see you all applauding. So well done, Professor McHugh. Can you hear me? Just give us a thumbs up if you can hear me. Yes, and
yeah,
nodding heads. That's brilliant. Okay, so we're going to go straight now to Lestrygonians, and that's where we're going to meet Mrs. Breen. And Olive is starring as Mrs. Breen this morning. So we'll have to see which device Olive is on, because she's multi-devicing as usual. So Olive, can you unmute yourself? Okay.
I had more to say, but I didn't.
So can everybody hear Olive?
Yeah. Sorry about the echo. Oh, it's echoes. Just let me. Yeah. Can you still hear me? Yes? No. Oh, dear.
Yes,
Right.
yeah.
Now can you hear me?
Where's the coffee? Oh, will we have a glass?
Can you hear me? Yeah.
I can hear you, Olive, but you're echoing. That's all. I can hear you okay.
Now. Can you hear me now?
Yes. There's an
Okay.
echo.
Bloom is walking up Westmoreland Street, and he reaches the Bank of Ireland. Oh, it's terrible. Sorry, the echo is awful. Oh, is it better now? Is it better now? Is it better now? Now. I'll turn off your second device.
Olive is muted now. Olive, can you hear?
Can you hear? The other device on. It's the feedback on the other device. Switch off one device.
Oh, God. I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
Are you gone altogether now, Olive?
Can you hear me?
Olive, can I suggest you turn off the video device? Have the audio.
Now, Olive? No, Olive has disappeared altogether. Can anybody hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Okay. So can I be heard? Give me a thumbs up if you can hear me.
Yes.
Yeah, okay. So I think we'll fire ahead and we'll hopefully we'll come back to Olive. Can we move on to Scylla and Charybdis? And that's Anne Hughes starring as Mr. Best.
Oh, great.
Mr. Best. We did see Mr. Best. Let's see now if we can find Mr. Best.
Now, I have unmuted. Can you hear me?
Yes, Anne.
Okay. Now, we've moved on to 2 o'clock in the afternoon at the National Library. Stephen is expounding his theory on Shakespeare and the writing of Hamlet, and he's testing the patience of my fellow librarian, John Eglinton, and myself, Richard Best. Mr. Best turned a non-offending face to Stephen. Mallarmé, don't you know, he said, has written those wonderful prose poems Stephen McKenna used to read to me in Paris. The one about Hamlet. He says, "Is the promen lisant au livre de lui-même, don't you know?" Reading the book of himself. He describes Hamlet given in a French town, don't you know, a provincial town. They advertised it. Hamlet, ou le distrait, pièce de Shakespeare. He repeated to John Eglinton's new-gathered frown. Pièce de Shakespeare, don't you know? It's so French. The French point of view. Hamlet, ooh. The absent-minded beggar, Stephen ended. John Eglinton laughed. Yes, I suppose it would be, he said. Excellent people, no doubt, but distressingly short-sighted in some matters. A deathsman of the soul, Robert Greene called him, Stephen said. Not for nothing was he a butcher's son, wielding the sledded poleaxe and spitting in his palm. 9 lives are taken off for his father's one. Our Father who art in purgatory. Khaki Hamlets don't hesitate to shoot. The blood-boltered shambles in Act 5 is a foretaste of the concentration camp sung by Mr. Swinburne. He will have it that Hamlet is a ghost story, John Eglinton said, for Mr. Best's behoof. Like the fat boy in Pickwick, he wants to make our flesh creep. What is a ghost? Stephen said with tingling energy. One who has faded into impalpability through death, through absence, through change of manners. Elizabethan London lay as far from Stratford as corrupt Paris lies from virgin Dublin. Who is the ghost from Limbo Patrum, returning to a world that has forgotten him? Who is King Hamlet? John Eglinton shifted his spare body, leaning back to judge. It is this hour of a day in mid-June, Stephen said. The flag is up on the playhouse by the bankside. The bare Sackerson growls in the pit near it. Canvas climbers who sailed with Drake chew their sausages among the groundlings. Shakespeare has left the Huguenot's house in Silver Street and walks by the Swan Mews along the riverbank. But he does not stay to feed the pen. The Swan of Avon has other thoughts. The play begins. A player comes on under the shadow, made up in the cast-off mail of a court buck, a well-set man with a bass voice. It is the ghost, the king, a king and no king, and the player is Shakespeare, who has studied Hamlet all the years of his life in order to play the part of the spectre. He speaks the words to Burbage, the young player who stands before him. calling him by a name. Hamlet, I am thy father's spirit, bidding him list. To a son he speaks, the son of his soul, the prince, young Hamlet, and to the son of his body, Hamlet Shakespeare, who has died in Stratford, that his namesake may live forever.
Lovely. Thanks very much, Anne. You're looking and sounding splendid. Mr.
Thank you.
Best. Very good. Okay, now next episode
Andrew,
is...
sorry, Andrew.
Yes.
Andrew, it's Olive talking. Do you think I'm in another room now and I think it's okay, is it?
It's
no?
Perfect. It's sounds like you're back on Earth. Back on Earth. That's fantastic.
I'm delighted to hear. Listen, can I read this now then while it's going well, in case it changes again?
Certainly, Mrs. Breen. Take it away.
Mrs. Breen, yes. Bloom is walking up Westmoreland Street, and near the Bank of Ireland, he sees a lady coming towards him, whilst he's thinking about Molly taking off her stays and so on, his usual sorts of thoughts. Right. Oh, Mr. Bloom, how do you do? How do you do, Mrs. Breen? No use complaining. How is Molly those times? Haven't seen her for ages. In the pink, Mr. Bloom says gaily. Millie has a position down in Mullingar, you know. Go away. Isn't that grand for her? Yes, in a photographer's there, getting on like a house on fire. How are all your charges? On the baker's list, Mrs. Breen said. How many has she, I wonder? No other in sight. You're in the black, I see. You have no... No, Mr. Bloom said. I've just come from a funeral. Going to crop up all day, I foresee. Who's dead, when, and what did he die of? Turning up like a bad penny. Oh, dear me, Mrs. Breen said. I hope it wasn't a near relation. May as well get her sympathy. Dignam, Mr. Bloom said. An old friend of mine. He died quite suddenly, poor fellow. Heart trouble, I believe. Funeral was this morning. Your funeral's tomorrow while you're coming through the rye. Diddly, diddly, dum, dum, diddly, diddly. Sad to lose old friends, Mrs. Breen, woman's eyes said melancholy. Now that's quite enough about that. Just quietly, husband. And your lord and master. Mrs. Breen turned up her two large eyes. Hasn't lost them anyhow. Oh, don't be talking, she said. He's a caution to rattlesnakes. He's in there now with his law books, finding out the law of libel. He has me heart scalded. Wait till I show you. Hot mock turtle vapour and steam of you-baked jam puffs roly-poly poured out from Harrison's. The heavy noon reek tickled the top of Mr. Bloom's gullet. Want to make good pastry, butter, best flour, demerara sugar, or they taste it with the hot tea. Or is it from her? A barefoot Arab stood over the grating, breathing in the fumes. Deadened the know of hunger that way. Pleasure or pain is it? Penny dinner. Knife and fork chained to the table. Opening her bag, chipped leather hat pin, ought to have guard on those things. Stick it in a chap's eye in the tram. Rummaging, open, money. Please take one. Devils if they lose sixpence. Raise cane, husband barging. Where's the 10 shillings I gave you on Monday? Are you feeding your little brother's family? Soiled handkerchief, medicine bottle, pastille that was felt. What is she? There must be a new moon out, she said. He's always bad then. Do you know what he did last night? Her hands ceased to rummage. Her eyes fixed themselves on him, wide in alarm, yet smiling. What? Mr. Bloom asked. Let her speak. Look straight in her eyes. I believe you. Trust me. Woke me up in the night, she said. Dream he had, a nightmare. Indiges. Said the ace of spades was walking up the stairs. The ace of spades, Mr. Bloom said. She took a folded postcard from her handbag. Read that, she said. He got it this morning. What is it? Mr. Bloom asked, taking the card. UP. UP up, she said. Someone taken the rise out of him. It's a great shame for them, whoever he is. Indeed it is, Mr. Bloom said. She took back the card, sighing. And now he's going round to Mr. Menton's office. He's going to take an action for £10,000, he said. She folded the card into her untidy bag and snapped the catch. I think that's it, really. Okay.
That's great, Olive. That was well worth waiting for. Thank you very much. Now, before we go on to Wandering Rocks, we've got Wendy and the Druidy Druids to sing us another song. What have you got for us, Wendy?
Okay, sorry, we're just setting up again. We'll do, can you hear us properly? Can you hear? Okay, we'll do Love's Old Song.
Lovely.
So, okay. Yeah. Once in the dear dead days beyond recall, when on the earth the mist began to fall, into our dreams it rose in happy throng. Lo, to our hearts love sang an old sweet song. And in the dusk a spell of firelight gleam, softly it wove itself into our dream. Just a song at twilight, when the lights are low, and the flickering shadows softly come and go. Though the heart be weary, sad the day and long, still to us at twilight comes love's old song. Comes love's old sweet song. Even today we hear love's song of yore. Deep in our hearts it dwells forevermore. Footsteps may falter, weary grow the way, still we can hear it at the close of day. And in the end, as life's dim shadows fall, love will be found the sweetest song of all. Just a song at twilight, when the lights are low, and the flickering shadows softly come and go. Oh, the heart be weary, sad the day and long, still to us at twilight comes love's old song. Comes love's old sweet song.
Beautiful, beautiful. The Druidy Druids. Thank you so much, Wendy.
Thanks.
And Thomas, is it?
Thomas, yeah, Thomas Dunn.
Thank you. That was absolutely gorgeous. Absolutely gorgeous. Now we're going to Wandering Rocks and we're seeing Dublin from different point of view. So we've got 3 readers here with short pieces, and we'll start off with Conor O'Toole and then we'll go on to Maeve Edwards and Marie McCourt. So Conor, what have you got for us?
Hi. Well, we're going to read some from Wandering Rocks, which is like an intermission in Ulysses, really. If you can imagine Joyce's interest in the cinema and theatre, obviously, he puts these little vignettes of Dublin at 3 o'clock on the 16th of June, 1904, of 19 little vignettes of different things happening at the same time. And to emphasize the concurrency of these vignettes, he actually transposes lines from one into another, and also a couple of lines that are not relevant to the other ones. So the little piece I'm going to read you now is one of the main features of Blazes Boylan in the novel. Even though Blazes Boylan has a pervasive presence right through the novel, he actually has very few speaking parts. He appears in the Ormond Hotel, and in this episode in the flower shop in Grafton Street. He is a rake, and a very predatory sort of rake running around, and he's having an affair with Molly Bloom and probably has plenty of others. And this is an interaction with the girl who works in the flower shop. And what is nice about this is that in a very, very short piece, the concise nature of Joyce's language skills and descriptions, he can make one word seem like 3 words, and he manages to put through a wonderful sensual nature in this, but also he managed to portray Blazes Boylan's manipulative nature as well. The blonde girl in Thornton's bedded the wicker basket with rustling fibre. Blazes Boylan handed her the bottle swathed in pink tissue paper and a small jar. "Put these in first, will you?" he said. "Yes, sir," the blonde girl said, "and the fruit on top." "That'll do, game ball, Blazes," Boylan said. She bestowed fat pears neatly, head by tail, and among them ripe, shame-faced peaches. Blazes Boylan walked here and there in new tan shoes about the fruit-smelling shop, lifting fruits, young, juicy, crinkly, and plump red tomatoes, sniffing smells. HELY''S filed before him, tall, white-hatted, past Tangier Lane, plodding towards their goal. He turned suddenly from a chip of strawberries, drew a gold watch from his fob, and held it at chain's length. "Can you send them by tram now?" A dark-backed figure under Merchant's Arch scanned books on a hawker's car. "Certainly, sir. Is it in the city?" "Oh, yes," Blazes Boylan said. 10 minutes. The blonde girl handed him a docket and pencil. "Will you write the address, sir?" Blazes Boylan at the counter wrote and pushed the docket to her. "Send it at once, will you?" he said. "It's for an invalid." "Yes, sir, I will, sir." Blazes Boylan rattled merry money in his trousers pocket. "What's the damage?" he said. The blonde girl's slim fingers reckoned the fruits. Blazes Boylan looked into the cut of her blouse. A young pullet. He took a red carnation from the tall stem grass. "This for me?" he asked gallantly. The blonde girl glanced sideways at him, got up regardless with his tie a bit crooked, blushing. "Yes, sir," she said. Bending archly, she reckoned again, fat pears, and blushing peaches. Blazes Boylan looked in her blouse with more favour, the stalk of the red flower between his smiling teeth. May I say a word to your telephone, Missy? He asked roguishly. That's it. Thank you.
Lovely, Connor. Thank you very much. For another flavour of Wandering Rocks, we're heading down to deepest Wicklow, and Maeve is there, and Marie. How are you, Maeve?
Hi, Andrew. Thank you for doing this. It's great.
Good. What have you got for us?
We have the episode just before Conor O'Toole's. That was great, Conor. So we have the episode just before that with Katie and Booty Daedalus. So I'll start now. Marie and I are going to do it together. Katie
Lovely.
and Booty Daedalus shoved in the door of the close steaming.
Sorry, Maeve.
Sorry, Andrew.
Maeve, is Marie with you?
Yes,
no,
she's
I'm here. I'm on another. I'm here in my own house.
Oh, great! And you've unmuted yourself. Fantastic.
I have.
Okay,
Yes.
fire ahead.
Okay, great. I'll start. Katie and Booty Daedalus shoved in the door of the close steaming kitchen.
Did you put in the books?
Booty asked. Maggie, at the range, rammed down a greyish mass beneath bubbling suds twice with her potstick and wiped her brow.
They wouldn't give me anything on them,
she said. Father Conley walked through Clongo's fields, his thin-socked ankles tickled by stubble.
Where did you try?
Booty asked.
McGuinness's.
Booty stamped her foot and threw her satchel on the table.
Bad cess to her big face,
she cried. Katie went to the range and peered with squinting eyes.
What's in the pot?
She asked.
Shirts,
Maggie said. Booty cried angrily.
Crikey, is there nothing for us to eat?
Katie, lifting the kettle lid in a pad of her skeined shirt, asked.
And what's in this?
A heavy fume gushed in answer.
Pea soup,
Maggie said.
Where did you get it?
Katie asked.
Sister Mary Patrick,
Maggie said. The lackey rang his bell. Booty sat down at the table and said hungrily,
Give it us, sit here.
Maggie poured yellow, thick soup from the kettle into a bowl. Katie, sitting opposite Booty, said quietly as her fingertips lifted to her mouth random crumbs.
Good job, we have that much. Where is Dilly?
Gone to me. Father.
Meet father,
Maggie said. Booty, breaking big chunks of bread into the yellow soup, added,
Our Father, who art not in heaven.
Maggie, pouring yellow soup in Katie's bowl, exclaimed,
For shame.
A skiff, a crumpled throwaway, Elijah is coming, rode lightly down the Liffey under Loopline Bridge, shooting the rapids where water chafed across the bridge piers, sailing eastward past hulls and anchor chains between the Custom House Old Dock and George's Quay. That's our episode. Thank you.
Lovely. Thank you very much, Maeve. Thank you, Marie. Well done. Lovely. Now we're going ahead for the Ormond Tell, and this is the Sirens episode. And after this, we're going to have a song from Frank Cogan. But first of all, we want to say hello to the two bar women. Would you like to introduce yourselves, ladies?
Miss Kennedy.
And I'm Miss Ducci. We're the two owl ones in the Ormond Hotel. We're really past it, but we're not giving up yet. We're going to try and lure the men in this lunchtime at 4 o'clock. Off you go.
I think Andrew cast me for this because he knows I'm from the area, a local lad as such. So I was born in Temple Bar. The Ormond, as you know, is opposite that old great theatre, Smock Alley. I was a an altar boy in the church, St. Michael and John's, where Smock Alley was in the basement. So, but we won't talk about that today. Anyway, bronze by gold, Miss Douce's head by Miss Kennedy's head, over the cross blind of the Ormond bar, heard the vice-regal hoofs go by, ringing steel. Is that her? Asked Miss Kennedy.
Miss Duty said yes, sitting with his ex, Pearl Grey and O'Donnell.
Exquisite contrast, Miss Kennedy said.
When all agog, Miss Duty said eagerly, look at the fella in the tall silk.
Who? Where? Gold asked more eagerly.
In the second carriage, Miss Duty's wet lips said, laughing in the sun. He's looking. Mind till I see. She darted bronze to the backmost corner, flattening her face against the pane in a halo of hurried breath. Her wet lips tittered. He's killed, looking back. She laughed. Oh, wept. Aren't men frightful idiots?
With sadness, Miss Kennedy sauntered sadly from bright light, twining a loose hair behind an ear, sauntering sadly, gold no more. She twisted, twined a hair, sadly she twisted in sauntering gold hair behind curving ear. It's them has the fine time, sadly, then she said, a man.
Blue who went by the Mullang's pipes, bearing in his breast the sweets of sin, by wine's antiques, in memory bearing sweet sinful words, by Carol's dusty, battered plate for Raoula.
The boots to them in the bar, them barmaids came. For them unheeding him, he banged on the counter his tray of chattering china, and, there's your teas, he said. Miss Kennedy, with manners, transposed the tea tray down to the upturned lithia crate, safe from eyes low. What is it? Loud Boots unmannerly asked.
Find out, Miss Duty retorted.
Your beau, is it?
Ah, haughty Bronze replied. I'll complain to Mrs. de Massey on you if I hear any more of your impertinent insolence.
Impertinent. Boots and Out sniffed rudely as he retreated, as she threatened as he had come. Bloom.
On her flower frowning, Miss Duty said, most aggravating that young brat is. If he doesn't conduct himself, I'll wring his ear for him a yard long.
Ladylike in exquisite contrast. Take no notice, Miss Kennedy rejoined. She poured in a teacup tea, then back in the teapot tea. They cowered under the reef of counter, waiting on footstools, crates upturned, waiting for their tea to draw. They pawed their blouses, both of black satin, 2 and 9 a yard, waiting for their teas to draw, and 2 and 7. Yes, bronze from an ear, by gold from afar, heard steel from an ear, hoofs ring from afar, and heard steel hoofs, ring hoof, ring steel.
That's it. Finished.
Thank you.
Well done. Thank you, Miss Duce, or Miss Duce, and Miss Kennedy. You're looking gorgeous.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right. Now, that is a very musical episode, and we're delighted to welcome Frank Cogan, who's going to give us a rendition of The Croppy Boy, which features in that episode. So, Frank, can you unmute yourself?
I have to take this. Mm-hmm.
Let's see.
Can you hear me?
Yes, Frank. You.
Okay. This is The Croppy Boy. This is a song sung by Ben Dollard in the Ormond Hotel. It's a kind of a background thread to a large section of the chapter. I'm singing it in key D. Ben Dollard, who's supposed to be a bass baritone, sings it in key F sharp major. But I'm a bit more modest in my aspirations, so I can sing it in T. Good men and true in this house who dwell, to a stranger vocal I pray you tell, is the priest at home, and may he be seen? I would speak a word with Father Green. The priest's at home, and he may be seen. 'Tis easy speaking with Father Green, but you must wait till I go and see if the Holy Father alone may be. The youth has entered a lonely hall, and solemn echoes his light footfall. In a darkened corner, cold and bare, sits a vested priest in a lowly chair. The youth has knelt to tell his sins. In nomine Dei he begins. At mea culpa he beats his breast, and in broken murmurs he speaks the rest. I cursed 3 times since last Easter day, and at Mass time once I went to pray. I passed the churchyard one day in haste, and forgot to pray for my mother's rest. At the siege of Ross did my father fall, and at Gorio my brothers all. I'm the last one left of my name and race. Now I go to Wexford to take their place. I bear no hatred to living thing, but I love my country above my king. So Father, bless me and let me go to die, if the Lord has ordained it so. The priest says naught, but a rustling noise makes the youth look up with mild surprise. The robes are off, and in scarlet there stands a yeoman captain with fiery glare. With fiery glare and with fury hoarse, instead of a blessing, he breathes a curse. 'Twas a good thought, boy, to come here to shrive. For 1 short hour is your time to live. On yonder river 3 tenders float, the priests in one, the innocent shot. I hold this house for my lord the king, and amen I say, let all traitors swing. At Geneva barracks this young man died, and 'tis at Passage his body is laid. Good people all that do pass by, say a prayer, shed a tear for the croppy boy.
Good man, Frank. Lovely. Absolutely gorgeous. Thanks a million. That's brilliant. Okay, so from the Ormond Hotel, we go around the corner now to Barney Kiernan's pub, and that's where we meet the Citizen, being played this afternoon by Racker Donnelly. So Racker, you're on as the Citizen in the Cyclops episode. So let's see if you can unmute yourself.
Try.
Yes, Racker, we can hear you.
You can hear me? Yeah, I did.
Now, no, I didn't touch it. No, I'm not touching anything. Now, don't touch anything now. Yes, yes, that's it.
But I misunderstood my instructions. I thought I was only going to be doing the other one. So can I just do the three little limericks about James Joyce? They'd be much quicker.
Of course you can.
And
Thank you.
I've been doing Bloomsdays for about 20 years, and I did one in Australia, in Melbourne, where they make a huge fuss about Bloomsday. They do great shows and that sort of thing. And so I did a show there, and I've kept in contact with them ever since. And a couple of years ago, they decided they would have a limerick competition. So they asked me, would I write a limerick about Joyce so that they could show people what a limerick sounded like. And that they should be writing ones about Joyce as well. So that's the first one of the three. So a request from down under. We said to a rider called Joyce, "Ride us a limerick, no choice." Said James, "Ask the racker, he'll send you a cracker. I'm a monk now in Monaster, boys." And the next one is called Snooty Joyce, which illuminates a tiny, tiny little flaw in his character, possibly. Snooty Joyce. James Joyce was a bit of a snob, with no time at all for the mob. A socialist, maybe, a political baby who wrote for the Ear and the Gob. That's in contrast to his brother Stanislaus, who was mildly heroic, especially in the First World War. And the last one is one I wrote at the Fitzgerald, one of the Fitzgerald sessions during the thing. I had this, what do you call it, apocalypse vouchsafed unto me about the extraordinary connection of Molly Bloom and Nora Barnacle. So I'll do that one. I know Robert has heard it. Anyway, here it is. And okay, so these are said to be by Bags Comiskey, who occurs in Ulysses, but he's a most unreliable narrator, so I wouldn't accept this as gospel. Anyway, according to Bags Comiskey, these were Molly Bloom's very last words. So you're either hearing a great revelation or a heap of nonsense. As a girl, I had a magical aura. Then in full bloom I was Flora. Soon I'll be carrying, once I was marrying, a damn anagram of I'm Nora.
Oh, that's fantastic, Racker. Thank you so much. Brilliant, brilliant. Thank you. Okay, zipping along now, we're heading for Sandymount Strand and the Nausicaa episode, and we've Susie starring as Gertie McDowell, and after Susie, we might have another song from Robert Walsh. Okay, Susie, let's see if you can unmute yourself.
Okay, here
Yes.
I am. Can anybody hear me? Thumbs up. Yeah, thank you very much. Hi, everybody. Of course, as you all know, this is Bloom on Sandymount Strand, and Gertie's there with her pals, just sunning herself on a rock, really. And they have what we might be familiar with today is a kind of a distance relationship. Herself and Bloom. Gertie McDowell, who was seated near her companions, lost in thought, gazing far away into the distance, was in every truth as fair a specimen of winsome Irish girlhood as one could wish to see. She was pronounced beautiful by all who knew her, though, as folks often said, she was more a Giltrap than a McDowell. Her figure was slight and graceful, inclining even to fragility, but those iron jelloids she'd been taking of late had done her a world of good, much better than the widow's Welch's female pills, and she was much better of those discharges she used to get, and that tired feeling. The waxen pallor of her face was almost spiritual. in its ivory-like purity, though her rosebud mouth was a genuine Cupid's bow, Greekly perfect. Her hands were of finely veined alabaster, with tapering fingers and as white as lemon juice and Queen of Ointments could make them, though it was not true that she used to wear kid gloves in bed or take a milk foot bath either. Bertha Supple told that once to Edie Boardman, a deliberate lie, when she was blackout in daggers drawn with Gertie. The girl chums had, of course, their little tips from time to time, like the rest of mortals. And she told her, not let on, whatever she did, that it was her that told her, or she'd never speak to her again. No, honor where honor is due. There was an innate refinement, a languid, queenly hauteur about Gertie, which was unmistakably evidenced in her delicate hands and high-arched instep. Had kind fate but willed her to be born a gentlewoman of high degree in her own right, and had she only received the benefit of a good education, Gertie McDowell might easily have held her own beside any lady in the land, and have seen herself exquisitely gowned, with jewels on her brow, and patrician suitors at her feet, vying with one another to pay their devours to her. Mayhap it was this, the love that might have been, that lent to her softly featured face at whiles a look, tense with suppressed meaning, that imparted a strange yearning tendency to the beautiful eyes, a charm that few could resist. Why have women such eyes of witchery?
That's lovely, Susie. Thank you so much. Absolutely gorgeously read.
Thank you.
Thank you. Now, Robert, what have you got for us?
What have I got here? I'll sing a song that has a connection with Parnell. Actually, I just noticed Tom Fitz there on the screen. I'd like to say hello to him, and of course Racker. But you know, for my first Bloomsday, when I went to Fitzy's was in 2004, and Tom actually threw me out because he said I got too rowdy. But anyway, it's great to see him there. Okay, so as we know, Parnell saturates really Joyce's work. We have the committee room in Dubliners, and then we have the Christmas dinner in the portrait. And then we have Bloom in Eumaeus, when he gives the chief back his hat, when they go to the newspaper office of the United Irishmen, the Parnellite paper, and there's a bit of a schmozzle, and the chief's hat is knocked off, and Bloom lifts it up and gives it back to Parnell with the words, and Parnell says to him, "Thank you, sir." So we now know that Bloom was obviously there as a Parnellite, if you like. So anyway, this is a song. There's not too many songs written about Parnell, as far as I know. Maybe, Andrew, you probably know a few more. But this is one written by Dominic Bean. And I first heard this song by Christy Moore, who actually obviously got it from Dominic Bean. It's a song you all know. Can people join in the chorus, Andrew? No, is that? Anyway, so we'll have a go with this. Anyway.
They can in the privacy of their own homes, but we won't unmute them because it's kind of out of sequence. But please do sing along and harmonise. But
listen,
off you go, Robert.
As you know, you can do anything in the privacy of your own home, Andrew. You know what I'm saying? Like, okay, so here we go. Oh, have you been to Avondale, or lingered in its lovely glade, where tall trees whisper and know the tale of Avondale's proud eagle? where fame and ancient glory fade. Such was the land that he was laid, like Christ was 30 pieces paid for Avondale's proud eagle. Oh, have you been to Avondale, or lingered in its lovely glade, where tall trees whisper and know the tale of Avondale's proud eagle? Long years that green and lovely vale has nursed Parnell, our greatest gale, and cursed the land that had betrayed fair Avondale's proud eagle. All together now. Oh, have you been to Avondale, or lingered in its lovely vale, where tall trees whisper and know the tale of Avondale's proud eagle? Chinnewood.
Well done. Well done.
Thanks very much, Robert. That's absolutely fabulous. Great to remember Parnell today. Now, we're going to move on to Hollis Street to meet Mrs. Purifoy, and then we might have a song from Lua. I think, Lua, you've sorted out your sound problem, so we might have a song from Lua after this episode. So, Mrs. Purifoy, we're sorry to disturb you there in your confinement, but are you up to kind of...
I think I could just about manage, yes.
Okay, thank you, Mrs. Purifoy.
So I've been here in the Hollis Street Maternity Hospital for 3 days in labour with what will be my 9th surviving child. I've had 12 pregnancy. Bloom comes to visit the hospital at 10 p.m. to see if Mina has given birth yet. Now, I believe this is really the most difficult episode of the book. Joyce's scheme here is embryonic development, not just human development, but also the development of the English language. There are 32 parodies, and I'm reading the one of Dickens, where a Mrs. Purifoy has just given birth to a baby boy. Here I go. Meanwhile, the skill and patience of the physician had brought about a happy accouchement. It had been a weary, weary while, both for patient and doctor. All that surgical skill could do was done, and the brave woman had manfully helped. She had fought the good fight, and now she was very, very happy. Those who have passed on, who have gone before, are happy too, as they gaze down and smile upon the touching scene. Reverently look at her as she reclines there with the mother light in her eyes, that longing hunger for baby fingers. A pretty sight it is to see. In the first bloom of her new motherhood, breathing a silent prayer of thanksgiving to one above, the universal husband. And as her loving eyes behold her babe, she wishes only one blessing more, to have her dear Dodie there with her to share her joy, to lay in his arms that mite of God's clay, the fruit of their lawful embraces. He is older now, you and I may whisper. And it is a trifle stooped in the shoulders, yet in the whirligig of years, a grave dignity has come to the conscientious second accountant of the Ulster Bank College Green branch. O Dodie, loved one of old, faithful life mate now, it may never be again that far off time of the roses, with the old shake of her pretty head. She recalls those days. God, how beautiful now across the mist of years, but their children are grouped in her imagination about the bed. And now this last pledge of their union, a Purefoy, if ever there was one, with the true Purefoy nose, young hopeful will be christened Mortimer Edward after the influential third cousin of Mr. Purefoy in the Treasury Remembrances Office, Dublin Castle. And so time wags on, but Father Croynan has dealt lightly here. No, let no sigh break from that bosom, dear gentle Mina. And Dodie, knock the ashes from your pipe, the seasoned briar you still fancy when the curfew rings for you, may it be the distant day, and doubt the light whereby you read in the sacred book, for the oil too has run low, and so with a tranquil heart to bed to rest. He knows and will call in his own good time. You too have fought the good fight and played loyally your man's part. Sir, to you my hand. Well done, thou good and faithful servant. And I'll use the cry at the beginning of the chapter when a boy is born. Hoopsa, boy, hoopsa.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Purefoy. Thank you, and congratulations again. Beautiful bouncing baby.
Thank you.
Now, Lou, would you like to give us a song? If you can unmute yourself. Lua was having device difficulty, and let's see if we can unmute you.
I'm unmuted, am I?
Or if you can. Yes. Great, Lua. Absolutely. Brilliant. Great.
Has anybody done Love's Old Sweet Song?
Yes, but the day that's in it, we can have it more than once,
well,
because it's the anthem.
Instead? Have you done?
Pardon?
Have you done the Sally Garden? Have you done the Sally
Yes,
Garden?
we've done Sally Garden.
You have?
Yes, yes.
Right, let's see what
yes.
I have. Somebody's done the Lass of Aughrim, obviously.
No, let's have the Lass of Aughrim.
You haven't had the Lass of Aughrim yet?
No.
Oh, good. Right. Okay. Well, if you be the Lass of Aughrim, as I suppose you to be, come give the last token that passed between you and me. Ah, Gregory, don't you remember the night on yon green hill, when we both met together, which I am sorry now to tell? Well, if you be the Lass of Aughrim, as I suppose you to be, come give me that last token that passed between you and me. Ah, Gregory, don't you remember that night on yon green hill, when we swapped rings off each other's hands, surely against my will? Mine was of the beaten gold, yours of the bog black tin. Yes, mine was of the beaten gold, yours of the bog black tin. The rain, it falls on my yellow, and the dew, it wets my skin. My babe lies cold within my arms. Ah, Gregory, won't you let me in? Mine was of the beaten gold, yours of the bog black tin. Yes, mine was of the beaten gold, yours of the bog black tin.
Lovely, Lua. Thank you so much. I was delighted you were able to sort out your technical difficulties.
Yeah, sure.
Thank you. Fabulous. Now, we're heading we're heading for Nighttown, the Circe episode, and we're going to meet Edward VII there. And after that, I was going to ask Tom Fitzgerald for a song. I know Tom is in the room. So if Tom can be on standby for a song, that'd be brilliant. So Kieran McBride today is Edward VII. Where's Kieran? Can you unmute yourself?
Can you hear me? Yes. Yep. Can you hear me there, everybody? Yeah. Good. Yeah. Yes. This is the episode. This is the episode where Stephen is quite drunk. He's just left Bella Cohen and is out on the street and is overheard. He says, "But in here, it is I must kill the priest and the king." He's overheard by private car. "What's that you say about my king?" And that's when suddenly the king appears in an apparition. Edward VII appears in the archway. He wears a white apron on which is the image of the Sacred Heart. It's stitched with the insignia of the garter and the thistle, the golden fleece, the elephant of Denmark, Skinner's horse, and Probyn's horse, Lincoln's Inn bencher, and the Ancient and Honourable Company of Massachusetts. He sucks the jujube, and he is robed as the grand, elect, perfect and sublime Mason, secret sign. He's got apron and trowel marked made in Germany. In his left hand, he holds a plasterer's bucket on which is printed "Défense d'uriner." A roar of welcome greets him. Yay! Edward VII, slowly, solemnly, but indistinctly. "Peace, perfect peace. For identification, bucket in my hand. Cheerio, boys." He turns to his subjects. And he levitates over heaps of the slain in the garb and with the halo of joking Jesus. "Well, I'm the queerest young fellow that was ever heard. My mother's a Jew, my father's a bird. With Joseph the joiner I cannot agree. So here's to the disciples and Calvary. If anyone thinks that I am a divine, he gets no free drinks when I'm making the wine, but have to drink water and wish it were plain, that I make when the wine becomes water again. My methods are new and are causing surprise. To make the blind see, I throw dust in their eyes. To signify merely this must be a cod, if commoners will enter the kingdom of God. Whenever I enter in triumph and pass, you will find that my triumph is due to an ass. And public support is a grand sinecure when you get the public to pity the poor. The more men are wretched, the more you will rule. But thunder out sinner to each bloody fool. For the kingdom of God, that's within you, begins when you once make a fellow acknowledge his sins. Rebellion anticipate timely by hope, and stories of Judas and Peter the Pope, and you'll find that you'll never be left in the lurch by children of sorrows and Mother the Church. Goodbye now, goodbye. Write down all I've said, and tell Tom, Dick, and Harry I rose from the dead. What's bred in the bone cannot fail me to fly, and Mount Olive is breezy. Goodbye now, goodbye.
Oh my God.
Kieran, that was fantastic.
Well done. I must say, I had to include the complete and original work by Oliver St. John Gogarty that Joyce never ever alluded to. He basically cut and pasted it into his great novel, but that's also a great rhyme and very, very irreverent as well.
Well done. Absolutely brilliant.
It was good fun researching all the regalia. These are all genuinely the real thing.
I bet.
These are all ancient.
Yeah.
They're all ancient orders from weird places.
Fantastic. Well, we look forward to reliving this live in Fitzy's this time next year. That's fantastic.
It'll become a permanent party base.
Yeah, definitely. Well, Tom, I can see Tom's image, but it's a still. So I suspect he's gone off to make his gorgonzola sandwich and to open up the bottle of Burgundy. But we're moving, we're into the home stretch now. We're moving into the final 3 episodes, Nostos. And I've been prompted by several people, Trish and the Bloomers, to say that it's time for wine. It's time for wine. And I'm glad to say that I have been served gorgonzola sandwich and a glass of Burgundy here. So look, Olive is up to it as well. And Trish, yes, it's definitely lunchtime. We're in the final stretch now, and we're moving to Eumaeus. This is at the Cabman's Shelter. And ladies and gentlemen, we'd like to introduce you to WB Murphy. Is WB Murphy in the house?
Yes,
being
indeed.
Played by Liz.
Yes, thank you very much, and welcome to everybody. Mr. Bloom and Stephen Dedalus are entering a cabby shelter, an unpretentious structure. I've no idea what time of night it is, but they probably don't either. The keeper is the famous Skin the Goat. Present are various Jarvies and stevedores and a red-bearded bibulous sailor. The red-bearded sailor, who had his weather eye on the newcomers, boarded Stephen, whom he had singled out for attention in particular, squarely by asking, "And what might your name be?" Just in the nick of time, Mr. Bloom touched his companion's boot, but Stephen, apparently disregarding the warm pressure from an unexpected quarter, answered, "Dedalus." The sailor stared at him heavily from a pair of drowsy, baggy eyes, rather bunged up from excessive use of booze, preferably good old Hollands and water. "You know Simon Dedalus?" he asked at length. "I've heard of him," Stephen said. Mr. Bloom was all at sea for a moment, seeing the others evidently eavesdropping too. "He's Irish," the seaman bold affirmed, staring still in much the same way and nodding. "All Irish." "All too Irish," Stephen rejoined. As for Mr. Bloom, he could neither make head nor tail of the whole business, and he was just asking himself what possible connection, when the sailor, of his own accord, turned to the other occupants of the shelter with the remark, "I seen him shoot 2 eggs off 2 bottles at 50 yards over his shoulder. The left hand dead shot." Though he was slightly hampered by an occasional stammer, and his gestures being also clumsy as it was, that he did his best to explain. "But bottle out there, say, 50 yards measured. Eggs on the bottles. Cocks his gun over his shoulder. Aims." He turned his body half round, shut up his right eye completely, then he screwed his features up some way sideways and glared out into the night with an unprepossessing cast of countenance. "Pom!" he then shouted once. The entire audience waited, anticipating an additional detonation, there being still a further egg. "Pom!" he shouted twice. Egg 2, evidently demolished, he nodded and winked, adding bloodthirstily, "Buffalo Bill shoots to kill, never missed, nor never will." A silence ensued, to Mr. Bloom, for agreeableness' sake, just felt like asking him whether it was a marksmanship competition like the Bisley. "Beg pardon," the sailor said. "Long ago," Mr. Bloom pursued without flinching a hair's breadth. "Why," the sailor replied, relaxing to a certain extent under the magic influence of diamond cut diamond. "It might be a matter of 10 years. He toured the wide world with Hengler's Royal Circus. I've seen him do that in Stockholm. Curious coincidence, Mr. Bloom confided to Stephen unobtrusively. Murphy's my name, the sailor continued. W.B. Murphy of Carrigallow.
Oh, lovely. Thank you very much, W.B. Murphy. That was absolutely wonderful, all the way from the Cabman's Shelter, Eumaeus. Thank you, Liz. Now, the penultimate episode is Ithaca, where Bloom and Stephen arrive at 7 Eccles Street. So, Joe Gallagher as Bloom and Stephen. See if you can unmute yourself, Joe.
I'm unmuted. Yeah.
Good man.
All right. Well, just as you said, there, Andrew, this is Bloom and Stephen making their way back to Eccles Street from Beresford Place. And this is Joyce's another change of style, big time. It's the question and answer episode where the narrator asks a question and another narrator seems to answer it. And it's a nice change of style, and there are some very fascinating and interesting digressions on the in this section as we go along. So I'll start, and I have one big long section in this, and then I just stop. I stop at the waning moon. Okay, so what parallel courses did Bloom and Stephen follow returning? Starting united both at normal walking pace from Beresford Place, they followed in the order named Lower and Middle Gardiner Streets and Mountjoy Square West, then at reduced pace, each bearing left Gardiner's Place by an inadvertence as far as the farther corner of Temple Street North, then at reduced pace, with interruptions of halt, bearing right, Temple Street North as far as Hardwick Place. Approaching disparate at relaxed walking pace, they cross both the circus before George's Church diametrically, the chord in any circle being less than the arc which it subtends. Of what did the duumvirate deliberate during their itinerary? Music, literature, Ireland, Dublin, Paris, friendship, woman, prostitution, diet, the influence of gaslight or the light of arc and the glow lamps on the growth of adjoining paraheliotropic trees, exposed corporation emergency dust buckets, the Roman Catholic Church, ecclesiastical celibacy, the Irish nation, Jesuit education, careers, the study of medicine, the past day, the maleficent influence of the pre-Sabbath Stephen's collapse. Did Bloom discover common factors of similarity between their respective like and unlike reactions to experience? Both were sensitive to artistic impressions, musical in preference to plastic or pictorial. Both preferred a continental to an insular manner of life, a cisatlantic to a transatlantic place of residence. Both, indurated by early domestic training and an inherited tenacity of heterodox resistance, professed their disbelief in many orthodox religious, national, social, and ethical doctrines. Both admitted the alternately stimulating and obtunding influence of heterosexual magnetism, where their views on some points divergent. Stephen dissented openly from Bloom's views on the importance of dietary and civic self-help, while Bloom dissented tacitly from Stephen's views on the eternal affirmation of the spirit of man in literature. Bloom assented covertly to Stephen's rectification of the anachronism involved in assigning the date of the conversion of the Irish nation to Christianity from Druidism by Patrick, son of Calpurnius, son of Potatus, son of Odysseus, sent by Pope Celestine I in the year 432 in the reign of Leary to the year 260 or thereabouts in the reign of Cormac MacArt, died 266 AD, suffocated by imperfect delectation of aliment at Sletty and interred at Nosnary. The collapse which Bloom ascribed to gastric inundation and certain chemical compounds of varying degrees of adulteration and alcoholic strength, accelerated by mental exertion and the velocity of rapid circular motion in a relaxing atmosphere, Stephen attributed to the reapparition of a matutinal cloud, perceived by both from different points of observation, Sandycove and Dublin, at first no bigger than a woman's hand. Was there one point in which their views were equal and negative? The influence of gaslight or electric light on the growth of adjoining paraheliotropic trees. Had Bloom discussed similar subjects during nocturnal perambulations in the past? In 1884, with Owen Goldberg and Cecil Turnbull, at night on public thoroughfares between Longwood Avenue and Leonard's Corner and Sing Street and Bloomfield Avenue. In 1885, with Percy Apjohn in the evenings, reclined against the wall between Gibraltar Villa and Bloomfield House in Crumlin, Barony of Uppercross. In 1886, occasionally with casual acquaintances and prospective purchases on doorsteps, in front parlours, in third-class railway carriages of suburban lines. In 1888, frequently with Major Brian Tweedy and his daughter, Miss Marion Tweedy, together and separately on the lounge in Matthew Dillon's house in Roundtown. Once in 1892 and once in 1893 with Julius Mastiansky on both occasions in the parlour of his, Bloom's house in Lambert Street, West. What reflection concerning the irregular sequence of dates 1884, 1885, 1886, 1888, 1892, 1893, 1904 did Bloom make before their arrival at their destination? He reflected that the progressive extension of the field of individual development and experience was regressively accompanied by a restriction of the converse domain of inter-individual relations. As in what ways? From in-existence to existence, he came to many and was as one received. Existence with existence. He was with any as any with any. From existence to non-existence gone, he would be by all as none perceived. What action did Bloom take on their arrival at their destination? At the house steps of the fourth of the equivalent uneven numbers, number 7 Exeter Street, he inserted his hand mechanically into the back pocket of his trousers to obtain the latchkey. Was it there? It was in the corresponding pocket of the trousers which he had worn on the day but one preceding. Why was he doubly irritated? Because he had forgotten and because he remembered that he had reminded himself twice not to forget. What were then the alternatives before the premeditatively, respectively, and inadvertently keyless couple? To enter or not to enter, to knock or not to knock. Bloom's decision? A stratagem. Resting his feet on the dwarf wall, he climbed over the area railings, compressed his hat on his head, grasped 2 points at the lower union of rail and stiles, lowered his body gradually by its length of 5 feet 9 inches and a half to within 2 feet 10 inches of the area pavement, and allowed his body to move freely in space by separating himself from the railings and crouching in preparation for the impact of the fall. Did he fall? By his body's known weight of 11 stone and 4 pounds, in our Voigtbus measure, as certified by the graduated machine for periodically self-weighing in the premises of Francis Freudman, pharmaceutical chemist of 19 Frederick Street North, on the last feast of the Ascension, to wit, the 12th day of May of the bisextile year 1904 of the Christian era, Jewish era 5664, Mohammedan era 1322, golden number 5, epoch 13, solar cycle 9, Dominican letter CB, Roman indication 2, Julian period 6617, MXMIV. Did he rise uninjured by concussion? Regaining new stable equilibrium, he rose uninjured, though concussed by the impact, raised the latch of the area door by the exertion of force at its freely moving flange, and by leverage of the first kind applied at its fulcrum gained retarded access to the kitchen through the sub-adjacent scullery. Ignited a lucifer match by friction, set free inflammable coal gas by turning on the vent cock at a high flame, which by regulating he reduced to quiescent incandescence, and lit finally a portable candle. What discrete succession of images did Stephen meanwhile perceive? Reclined against the area railings, he perceived through the transparent window panes a man regulating a gas flame of 14 CP, a man lighting a candle, a man removing in turn each of his 2 boots, A man leaving the kitchen holding a candle of 1 CP. Did the man reappear elsewhere? After a lapse of 4 minutes, the glimmer of his candle was discernible through the semi-transparent, semicircular gas fanlight over the hall door. The hall door turned gradually on its hinges. In the open space of the doorway, the man reappeared without his hat, with his candle. Did Stephen obey a sign? Yes. Entering softly, he helped to close and chain the door, and followed softly along the hallway, the man's back and listed feet and lighted candle, past a lighted crevice of doorway on the left, and carefully down a turning staircase of more than 5 steps into the kitchen of Bloom's house. And there he was. That's it. Thank you.
Banjo, we're home. We're home. We've arrived back home at 7 Eccles Street. Thank you very much for taking us there. And at long last, we reach the final episode, Penelope, and we're delighted to welcome Molly Bloom, and Julie Larkin is going to take us home after our odyssey. Okay, Julie. Yes. Right, Julie, unmuted.
Unmuted and ready to go. Episode 18, The Proposal. The sun shines for you, he said the day we were lying among the rhododendrons on Hoth Head, in the grey tweed suit and his straw hat, the day I got him to propose to me. Yes. First, I gave him the bit of seed cake out of my mouth. And it was leap year like now, yes, 16 years ago. My God, after that long kiss, I nearly lost my breath. Yes, he said I was a flower of the mountain. Yes, so we are all flowers, all a woman's body. Yes, that was one true thing he said in his life. And the sun shines for you today. Yes, that was why I liked him, because I saw he understood or felt what a woman is. And I knew I could always get round him. And I gave him all the pleasure I could, leading him on till he asked me to say yes. And I wouldn't answer first, only looked out over the sea and the sky. I was thinking of so many things he didn't know of. Mulvey and Mr. Stanhope and Hester and father and old Captain Groves and the sailors all playing, all birds fly and I say stoop and washing up dishes, they called it, on the pier. And the sentry in front of the governor's house with the thing round his white helmet, poor devil, half roasted. And the Spanish girls laughing in their shawls and their tall combs. And the auctions in the mornings, the Greeks and the Jews and the Arabs and the devil knows who else from all ends of Europe, and Duke Street and the fowl market, all clucking outside Larby Sharon's, and the poor donkeys slipping half asleep, and the vague fellows in the cloaks, asleep in the shade on the steps, and the big wheels of the carts of the bulls, and the old castle, thousands of years old, yes, and those handsome Moors, all in white and turban like kings, asking you to sit down in their little bit of a shop. And Rhonda with the old windows of the posadas, glancing eyes a lattice hid for her lover to kiss the iron. And the wine shops half open at night, and the castanets, and the night we missed the boat at Algeciras, the watchman going about serene with his lamp, and oh, that awful deep down torrent, oh, and the sea crimson sometimes like fire, and the glorious sunsets. And the fig trees in the Almeida Gardens, yes. And all the queer little streets, and pink and blue and yellow houses, and the rose gardens, and the jasmine and geraniums and cactuses, and Gibraltar as a girl, where I was a flower of the mountain, yes. When I put the rose in my hair like the Andalusian girls used, or shall I wear a red? Yes. And how he kissed me under the Moorish wall. And I thought, well, as well him as another. And then I asked him with my eyes to ask again. Yes. And then he asked me, would I? Yes, to say yes, my mountain flower. And first I put my arms around him, yes, and drew him down to me so he could feel my breasts, all perfume, yes. And his heart was going like mad, and yes, I said, yes, I will, yes.
Well done, Julie. That was absolutely gorgeous. Thank you so much. Beautiful. Really, really beautiful. Okay, folks, so that brings us to the end of our reading this afternoon. So just a few words before, I'm actually going to ask the Druids and Robert to give us a song before we finish, but a few words of thanks. First of all, thank you very much to everybody for reading and for singing, and the huge work that went into it, and the trouble that so many people went to between beards and mustaches and hats, and it's absolutely brilliant. And thanks to James for looking after the website, because this has been brought to you by the Friends of the Joyce Tower. And for our visitors, if you'd like to log on to the website, thejoyce.ie, you can see all the wonderful videos we have up for our virtual Bloomsday performances by Noel O'Grady, Brian Murray, the Druids, and Katrina Nihrasi. So thanks very much to James for making all that possible. And finally, thank you very much to Philip Pearson for this great idea of dress and tell, that each one of us would take on a character from a different episode, and it meant that we were able to experience the whole book in a couple of hours. Okay, so after a couple of songs, after a song from Wendy and a song from Robert, you know, feel free to linger on and have your sandwich and your glass of wine or whatever, and maybe a few people might like to do extra reading or two before we head off for the rest of the day. Okay, so first of all, we call on Wendy and Thomas to give us a song, and then Robert.
Okay, we're going to do Bid Adieu.
Bid Adieu.
Can you hear us, yeah? Is it okay? Sound okay? Bid adieu, adieu, adieu. Bid adieu to girlish day. Happy love is come to thee, and woo thy girlish way. The zone that doth become me fair, the snoot upon thy yellow hair. Bid adieu, 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 adieu to girlish day. When thou hast heard his name upon the bugles of the cherubim, begin thou softly to one's own, thy girlish bosom unto him, and softly to undo the smooth that is the son of maidenhood. Bid adieu, 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 adieu to girlish days. When thou hast had his name upon the bugles of the cherubim, begin thou softly to one's own, thy girlish bosom unto him, and softly to undo the snow that is the son of maidenhood. Bid adieu, 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 adieu to girlish days.
Lovely. Thanks very much, Wendy. Thank you, Thomas. Oh,
Hello,
okay,
Andrew.
Robert.
Hello, Andrew.
Yes, Philip.
Can I just say, I believe Tom Fitzgerald is there now. I haven't seen him. And I just want to say, I wish him well and sorry for all of his problems that he's had. And we'd be lost without him and look forward to seeing him in the future.
Here, here. Thanks very much, Philip. Yeah, he's logged on, but I only see a still, and I messaged him hoping he'd be able to give a song, but he hasn't responded. But anyway, hope he's keeping well. Thanks very much for that, Philip. Okay, Robert, how about a song before we go?
Okay, Andrew, I'm going to lower the sort of tone of the whole thing after that lovely rendition from the Drudy Druids. This is a song.
No better person, Robert, to lower the tone.
Absolutely, absolutely. But anyway, this is a song. Actually, I dedicate this song to Pat Crowley. Is he there? Is Pat on the line? He is he somewhere? Pat Crowley. Anyway, no, I'm sure he's there. Anyway, this is a song. It tells the tale really of people who went away to the First World War from Cork, and the song actually came about by a chap called Jimmy Crowley. Jimmy Crowley was a great Cork balladeer, and he was singing in this session, and this woman came up to him. This was in the 1960s, and she said, "What are you singing them old songs for?" And she said, "Well, you know, songs are like ghosts. They only come alive when you sing them." And she said, "Well, I'll give you this song," and this is the song she actually gave him. It's called Salonica. And me husband's in Salonica, I wonder if he's dead. I wonder if he knows he has a kid with a foxy head. So right away, Salonica, right away, me soldier boy. And when the war is over, what will the soldiers do? They'll be walking around with a leg and a half, and the slackers they'll have two. So right away, Salonica, right away, me soldier boy. And when the war is over, what will the slackers do? They'll be hanging around the soldiers for a lend of a bob or two. So right away, Salonica, right away, me soldier boy. Now they takes you out to Blarney and lays you on the grass, and puts you in the family way and leaves you on your arse. So right away, Salonica, right away, me soldier boy. Now they tax the pound of butter, they tax the halfpenny bun, but still for all their taxes they can't beat the bloody Hun. So right away, so right away, so right away, Salonica, right away, me soldier boy. And when the war is over, what will the slackers do? For every kid in America, in Cork there will be two. So right away, so right away, so right away, Salonica, right away, me soldier boy. Don't ever marry a soldier, a sailor or a marine, but keep your eye on the Sinn Féin boy with orange, white and green. So right away, so right away, so right away, Salonica, right away, me soldier boy. And me husband's in Salonica, I wonder if he's dead. I wonder if he knows he has a kid with a poxy head. So right away, so right away, so right away, Salonica, right away, me soldier boy.
Well done.
Come on, Robert. Thank you very much. Now, we're going to finish up in about 15 minutes, around 2 o'clock. So if there's anybody who is logged on there and would like to read a few lines from Ulysses or would like to sing a song, now's your chance. Just for the next 10 or 15 minutes, we'll open up the house to anybody who's just gumming to get in there with a few lines or a little bit of a song or a recitation that we haven't heard from so far. Lucy in Hastings, would you like to say something to us? Let's see if Lucy can. Yes, Lucy, how are you?
Hi, I'm very well, thanks. It's really nice to see you all. It's fabulous. And thank you for an amazing morning. It's been amazing. So, yeah.
Great.
You guys were the ones that inspired all of us when you came to visit. So we're always very grateful for that visit back in November. So we're still reading. So, yeah. Yeah, so it's Bloomsday.
So the Hastings group is going strong.
It's still going. We've been Zooming it, yeah, for a while. So, yeah, so we're going to do a Zoom later. So, yeah.
Very good.
Yeah.
Very good. That's great. That's great. Well, we had people on as well from Moscow. We had people logged on as far away as Moscow this morning, which was amazing. I don't know how they heard about it, but that was great.
Yeah, good news travels quickly, Andrew. So.
Good. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to unmute everybody, and that will kind of, it'll get very noisy, but at least it'll give an opportunity to give people to say hello to one another. And let's see.
Hi.
Hello. Can I say hello to everybody? It's Olive here. I wanted to say hello to Denise in particular and Hattie. And I'll talk to them later on the phone. Okay.
Olive, we've been watching you do your housework for the last half hour. It's great. Andrew, how about if everybody unmutes themselves?
Okay, everybody, just unmute yourselves.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Very quiet. It's either going to be very quiet or very noisy.
That's better now.
That's good.
Everybody can get in. Say, are there any other visitors or guests that are taking part that aren't in the reading group that would like to say something from some part of the world?
Yeah, I joined you from Dalkey. Eddie French, delighted to be part of it. Lovely morning.
Dalkey wouldn't really be regarded as foreign parts, but you're very, very welcome.
Thank you.
Could I just say, I recorded a section of episode 3 with the band in Hastings, and it was played on radio part of Lake Junction on Friday.
Sorry. Yeah.
Oh gosh, it's very difficult. So I can't hear anything.
Yeah, it's a shame.
What else could do?
Okay, folks, so it's all gone a bit wonky, so we'll just conclude there, because I think we've had a great morning, and what we might do is just finish up with the verse and chorus of Love's Old Sweet Song. So
what happened now to the Andrew? There was a request for the volunteer song.
The volunteer song. Okay, so we'll sing the
Yeah,
song
go
and
for
you can
that.
join in your own. Okay, we'll finish with this one, and you can join in as in the privacy of your own home, and nobody can have to listen to you. So this is a tribute to the volunteers who have kept the tower open, and let's hope we see it open again soon. So thanks a million, everybody, and enjoy the rest of your Bloomsday. Here we go.
Thank you, Andrew.
No, Anne-Marie. Oh.
Of all the towers Billy Pitt had built when the French were on the sea to defend this land, no matter what it took.
Stop.
Can you hear me, folks? Sandy Cove Martello. Give me thumbs up if you can hear me. No? Can you hear me, Kieran?
You disappeared for a little while, Andrew.
Yeah,
but
is there somebody else?
Start from the top again.
Is it
But you're
voice
back again.
activated? If we all turn to mute, if we all mute ourselves, let Andrew.
Okay, here we go. Of all the towers Billy Pitt had built when the French were at sea to keep Boney out no matter what it took, there's one that's known around the world, and it's loved by you and me, and it's all because of one man and a book. The Sandy Cove Martello, James Joyce Tower and Museum since 1962. People come from near and far just to gaze at his guitar, artifacts and first editions too. Once Napoleon Bonaparte met his Waterloo, this mighty tower lost its raison d'etre. But a gentleman named Gogarty had a plan to make it new, so it came alive again a century later. Oliver St. John Gogarty was a man of many parts. He invited friends and enemies to stay. He rebranded the tower as a centre for the arts. He was the Tyrone Guthrie of his day. the Sandy Cove Martello, James Joyce Tower, where you're welcome every day of the year, where the monster flag flies high and people wonder why. If you want to know, just ask a volunteer. Well, one night in September of the year 1904, Samuel Trench and James Joyce were his guests. They'd spent the day creating till they could do no more. Off they went to bed to get some rest, but their sleep was interrupted by a terrifying scream. Ah! Around the room the bullets ricocheted. Trench had sworn he'd seen a black panther in a dream. Joyce could take no more and ran away from the Sandy Cove Martello, James Joyce Tower and Museum since 1962. With walls 8 foot thick, made with granite, not with brick. We've got artifacts and first editions too. So Ulysses was written in cities far away, and we celebrate its genius every year. It's the story of a man and a city and a day, and it began and begins right here in the Sandy Cove Martello, James Joyce Tower, where you're welcome every day of the year. Oliver St. John's Omphalos, the setting for Telemachus. If you want to know more, ask and volunteer. Yes, the Sandy Cove Martello, James Joyce Tower, where you're welcome every day of the year. It's rather bleak in winter time, but what a view, it's worth the climb. If you want to know more, ask a volunteer. Thank you for your kind donation. Want to know more, ask a volunteer. Thank you very much, everybody. Thanks a million. Happy Bloomsday.